Hey everybody, 3KO Games here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 3 of my Mana Control series. If you haven't seen part 2 and part 1, I did blue and then green heroes. I'll put a link down in the description to those videos, as well as a link where you can support the channel if you would like to with some memberships. I talked about those last time. Won't do a whole spiel this time, but it's there if you're interested. So, I've been breaking down all of the heroes based on category of how they do mana control, and then giving my top 5 in each color at the end. So in red, let's jump in and talk about the mana reducers first. In alphabetical order, I'll even say something about the 3 stars. Azar, fine. Sniper reduces mana of 1 by 25%. Bao-Chan, better, because it hits all, and all mana is reduced on all enemies by 20%. So that's kind of nice. Carol, now we get to some 4 stars at least. Reduces mana of the target by 25%. And then a gift box explodes after 4 turns. That's always been just a little clumsy to me. That, I don't really want to wait 4 turns for the damage to actually happen. So yeah, she never got leveled up by me. Next up is a great hero that you don't actually see that much. I pulled him in the Santa's Challenge event maybe 2 years ago, and then just got lucky with other heroes and never leveled him up. But I don't know, one of these days I might take the time with Cookie. Cookie is both a mana reducer, reducing mana of all enemies by 20%, and a mana blocker. 3 turns afterwards, all heroes or all enemies get a mystery potion that explodes and damages them and blocks their mana for another turns. So pretty good hero. Idun, 3 star, hit all, reduce all mana by 10%. That mana reduction thing is just in her costume, I believe. Then we can get to Fulvia, one of our 5-star owls, that reduces the mana of the target and nearby by 10% at the end of the turn for 3 turns. So if they are able to try to get ready to fire again in the next turn, nope, we'll still cut them down at the end of that turn. That's a pretty handy way of doing the mana control, just a little bit in each turn. Ilmarinen reduces mana of all ice enemies by 40% and any other enemies by 20%. One of those heroes that specializes in damage against a certain color. 4-star Lucy. Each time the target activates their special skill during 3 turns, the mana of all other enemies is reduced by 8%. That's a fun twist on the special, but not entirely useful. You really have to wait and see and get lucky on who gets charged up and try to charge the right enemies up and have them fire their special, but you don't want them to really fire their special. So it's tricky to use Lucy. There's another hero that's somewhat like that. I don't remember if she's red or not. I'll think of it later. Mitsuko reduces the mana of 3 by 20%. And of course, she's got that blue reflect that is really pretty great. Ruby used to rule the game, one of the early, not the earliest, but one of the early seasons of Ninjas, because we can reduce mana of 1 by 25%. On the second mana charge, it's mana of 3 by 50%, which is really the sweet spot there. Or if you get all the way to 3rd charge, you're going to reduce mana of every single enemy by 100%. Ruby, the stats don't hold up anymore, but if you have her, you can still make her work, even though the hit is not that strong. The mana reduction is pretty nice. Rudolph reduces mana of 1 just fine. Skargrimar, Hero of the Month. reduces mana to the target and nearby by 20%. Let's jump in and talk about mana stealers, because there are a couple of those in this category. We've got Ruffian and Nurgib, the old R and N, one of the best heroes of the month. He's a hero of the month from years ago now that still can see some action. Because you not only reduce mana, but you steal that mana and give it to the rest of your team. Steal 50% from the target. So a really useful hero to have to cut down whatever enemy is problematic or whatever enemy is closest to firing. They're going to damage that target from 420 to all the way to 570% damage, depending upon their health, and then steal 50% of that mana. Give it to the rest of the team. Lots of fun. Another mana stealer here, we have Zenda from Season 4. The original card deals 250% damage to all. They get burn damage, and then the caster steals generated mana from all enemies over 4 turns, starting low, increasing until last turn all the generated mana is stolen. Original card is okay. It's just that Season 4 heroes aren't going to last that long. But then she came out with a costume that, even without emblems and limit breaks, put her at about 1,000 team power. Gives her a little less immediate damage, more burn damage that she absorbs as health, and then does that big mana steal, starting low and going high for all enemies. With the costume bonus, still a very usable hero. Those are the mana stealers. Let's look at the mana generation down, which is not my favorite type of mana control. I talked about that a little bit last time. You can't, at least I can't, always do the math of when I use mana generation down against an opponent team. What does that mean for how I am throwing tiles at them and who I'm going to charge up? It's a little bit confusing. But when a defensive hero has mana generation down, it is frustrating, or gives mana generation down. It is frustrating on that attacking team to not know how many tiles exactly you're supposed to get in order to charge your hero up. But we've got a couple of mana generation down heroes here in red, including Charlotta, slow speed from the Opera family. Incredibly good hero. Hit 3, mana generation down 50%. And healing down 50% during this. That's what her ballad is a 50% mana generation down and healing down. After that dance ends, 1,500 damage to target and nearby. So slow speed, only target and nearby. But what she does to target and nearby is pretty great. Elizabeth, another hero that used to just kind of rule the game for a little while. One of the first fiend heroes. Hits all, gives a fiend to everybody, and that fiend gives negative 24% mana generation. Just not a strong enough hero these days anymore. Not a hero that's going to really have stats that stand the test of time. Natalia, I actually like her special, but I think just because she's so old, and again, stats have gotten old, she's just not somebody that I would highly recommend. I know she was available either for cheap in the Soul Exchange or maybe in the Faded Summon recently. She gives a large damage over time and negative 50% mana generation. So that's not bad. If you are just starting out, not a horrible hero to have. You have to be willing to use a damage over time hero and wait for it to happen, or risk the fact that it might get cleansed or something like that. Raoul is a 4-star hero from the Opera family. I did level up Raoul just because he gives a dance to the opponent's team. So if nothing else, you're going up against a strong dance hero, and you have no way around it. You can use 4-star Raoul to wipe it out. But I don't use him hardly at all. He hits 3 and then gives 20% mana generation down and 20% healing down. That little ballad or dance or whatever he has is not that strong. Really, his only utility is wiping out the dance from somebody else. Next, we go into some mindless heroes. And we've got some great mindless heroes here. Cupido from the Season of Love. I think the original mindless heal hero. Great hero. I pulled him from the Soul Exchange, and like most red heroes, I just got lucky pulling other red heroes, and I never finished them. But I just finished a red super elemental, the Contest of Elements event, where I get to just like tap into a lot of older heroes and got to use Cupido, and it's so much fun because you get control over the 3 that you hit. 295% damage to those 3, and then those 3 get mindless heal for 3 turns, where if they get full on mana, boom, they're actually just going to heal your weakest hero. Pretty nice. Also, that whole family is immune to silence. An older hero, but a useful hero. Aeron, one of the owls, 5-star sniper, gives up to 2180 damage to 1. Then all enemies get 35% defense down, and the target gets that shifting mindless attack. If you see my other videos, you know how much I love that shifting mindless attack, where you fill up somebody in mana and then drain their mana, and then it goes to somebody else, and you don't know who that second target might be, but it can be really, really useful and keep going for a really long time in the battle. Aeron, I liked Bubbles in blue, but Aeron has much more recent relevant stats and does a shifting mindless attack, so he's pretty great. Hoenverf I pulled from Soul Exchange a couple years ago whenever he was available, and still use him once in a while for that mindless attack. 450% damage to 1, plus a Gargoyle Fiend that causes mindless attack. So very useful there. Finally, we have a couple of heroes in red whose skill doesn't really fit one of the other categories. Nobody else is doing exactly what they do yet. Brand new Shermine or Charmione, who paralyzes his enemies, gives a devouring goo which damages per removed buff and growth. The target cannot attack or gain mana over 4 turns, and takes 50% more damage and hits 3. So Shermine, really strong, slow speed hero, and is a kind of a mana blocker of sorts, but they talk about her as being a paralyzer. So I haven't seen paralysis anywhere else in the game. It's kind of a mana block, but also that target takes more damage, which is pretty nice. Final hero to talk about right now is Daemon, who's not really controlling mana exactly, but what he does is block the talent skill activation for 3 turns of a target. And that target cannot cast any status effects on enemies or allies for 3 turns. So you're basically still shutting the special skill down, if it's a special skill that gives some kind of status effect. If it's just a pure hit special skill, that won't shut down. But when you're talking about Bernadette or somebody like that, you're controlling her special skill. You're just shutting it down, and that's really handy. Does he fit in with mana control? Not exactly, but he accomplishes what you want mana control to do, and that's just to stop the target from firing, or stop that target's special skill. Okay, that was a quick journey through all of the red heroes. If I missed somebody, let me know. It seems like I've missed one in each video so far. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, now it's time to break down my top 5 mana control heroes in red. I'm going to give an honorable mention right now to Ruffian and Nurgib, whatever it is. Hero of the month. Steals 50% mana from the target and distributes them to allies. Plus, snipes for 420%. The more health the enemy has, the more damage they do, and they give a element link to fire allies with a little chance to dodge. That's not a big deal. Stealing 50% mana is really useful. The reason I didn't put Ruffian in the top 5 is that without emblems and limit breaks, team power there is just over 800. It's just really low stats. So you have to do everything you can to keep this hero alive if you want to use them. So, honorable mention, Ruffian. Let's go to number 5. I'm going to put Zenda. Zenda costume. I think if we only had Zenda original, she would also be a honorable mention just because the stats are low. But 230% damage to all enemies, not bad. All enemies receive 424 burn damage over 4 turns. Caster absorbs 20% of health of dealt burn damage as health. Difference between the original and the costume, besides a great costume bonus, is that there's more burn damage and you get more of it back as health. So that comes in really handy. And then Caster steals generated mana from all enemies over 4 turns. Starting low, I wish it were starting higher than that, but by the 4th turn, it steals all generated mana from all enemies, which is pretty great. Number 5 for me is Zenda, and I want to thank some of my Alliance mates and some of my Guardians family mates who helped me think about this. Some of them felt so strongly about this number 5, about Zenda, and about my number 4, that I actually put Ruffian as the honorable mention. Several people mentioned to me number 4. There he is, Cookie. Cookie, give it up for Cookie from the Santa's Challenge event. We just don't see Cookie used that much, unfortunately. But when Cookie is there, when Cookie does his thing, it reduces the mana of all enemies by 20%. That by itself is really handy. You get an elf minion, whatever. But then all enemies get a mystery potion. After 3 turns, that mystery potion explodes and deals 450 damage to the target. Not a big deal. Everybody gets 450 damage. Okay. And after the explosion, the target can't gain mana for 3 turns. So first you reduce their mana, and then if you can keep their mana low for the next 3 turns, they won't gain mana for another 3 turns after that. We've got a mana reducer and a mana blocker here in Cookie. I'm putting Cookie as number 4. Next up, we've got number 3, Daemon. Daemon isn't exactly a mana blocker, but he does, or isn't exactly a mana control hero, but he does what I want a mana control hero to do. So I'm including him in on this list, and very high on this list. His very fast special dispels buffs, blocks talent skill activation for the target for 3 turns. The immediate one that I think of is like, you kill a fighter class hero, they're not going to revive. Amazing. Snipes for 485% damage. And then the target cannot cast any new status effects on enemies or allies for 3 turns. So basically you are shutting that special skill down as long as it's not just, damage only. If it's an ailment or it's a buff, you have shut it down for 3 turns at very fast speed. So you need to shut down Bernadette. You might have to hold on to Daemon for a couple turns because she's, at very slow speed, whatever. But you fire Daemon, she can't. She spends her mana and she just can't do it. It's awesome. Awesome way to shut down a really tricky hero in our number 3 choice, Daemon. My number 2 on this list is Aeron from the Owl family. Aeron, fast speed hero, attacks the target with a Moonrise Strike up to 1480 damage, so that's a huge snipe. Deals more damage if the target is holy, then automatically gives that target a shifting, mindless attack ailment for 4 turns. That 4th turn at very fast speed is pretty amazing. So the target fills up on mana, they hit somebody else, and they then give them that ailment. And that can just keep going and just keep going. Plus, what else does Aeron do? Aeron also gives damage down to everybody. He's a great hero. I wish I had him. You know how much, if you've watched my other videos, how much I like shifting mindless attack, and Aeron's got it at fast speed with a newer, relevant hero. Fantastic. Here it is, number 1. I have not been able to play with or against Charmione or Charmini yet, but she is a brand new hero from the Slime family. And she's at slow speed, but if you can get that special activated, they get devouring target and nearby, so 3 enemies get devouring goo status ailment for 3 turns, where it removes all dispellable buffs and growth effects and damages them per turn and per buff and growth effect removed. So they get all that damage. Then after 1 turn, the target and nearby enemies get paralyzed for 4 turns. That 4th turn, again, is just awesome. They can't attack or gain mana and receive plus 50% increased damage. So that is not like, a sleep hero that puts them to sleep. They can't gain mana and they get, increased damage. But as soon as you hit them, they're also awake. No, these guys will stay paralyzed for all 4 of those turns and can have increased damage for every one of those turns. So, if you are lucky enough to land Charmini and can get her special skill up at slow speed, she is an awesome hero, and she makes my number 1 red mana control hero. Hey, that does it for now, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the video. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. And stay tuned. I will try to get to the last 2 colors very soon. We've got yellow and we've got purple heroes yet to go. Have a great day. See you soon.